ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another third-party unlicensed SooSoo Toys 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we are going to be taking a look at none other than Classic Trickster, aka Classic Loki from the Loki Disney Plus series. Now I personally have been super excited to get this guy in and slowly build out my Loki display. Now I got mine from Comic Sanctorum. Do bear in mind though, this is a third-party unofficial product. I have popped the link in the description below for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video, this is a review on a figure I picked up for my own personal collection. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's collection plus the channel membership. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art, and in traditional SooSoo Toys fashion, yeah, it looks very good. An image of classic Loki front and center conjuring up some magic, classic Trickster down below, and then of course some warnings and legal info on the back of the box. Now on the inside there is another image of classic Loki, but that to me looks like the figure rather than actually Richard E. Grant. Now speaking of Richard E. Grant, there are two different versions of classic Loki in 1/6 scale. There's the SooSoo Toys one, which we have here, and then there's the upcoming Hot Toys release. Now unfortunately, the Hot Toys one is going to be quite a few years out. So for now, this is going to be our only option for a classic Loki in the display. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now starting off with the display base first, it is done in the usual SooSoo Toys style. It's hexagonal, rather chunky, some metal grate flooring details sculpted into the surface, plus a Loki helmet symbol smack bang in the middle. Now it is done in the same colour scheme as Loki himself. Gold for the helmet with some pitting on the surface, yellow for the outlines, then green for the main body. Plus you do have some airbrush shading throughout the entire base. You also have a regular crotch grabber up top. For some of the cutest accessories, you do get some animal friends. Starting off with Throg first, you'll notice he isn't in a jar. Now the Hot Toys one is. You may argue that, hey, this isn't accurate, and yes, you're 100% right, it isn't. But the reason why they ditched the jar is because his arms are articulated. That's right, you can move them up and down, and you can get a little bit of posability. Now, obviously, everything else is fully fixed, so you can't do a ton with him, but being able to raise up Mjolnir, yeah, it's a very nice touch. Throg himself is nicely painted, and I do like that the cape ends in a little bit of a plateau. That's so that if you do want to have him standing in the display, yeah, he's not going to topple over. As for Alligator Loki, this guy goes by many names. Crocodile Loki, Alligator Loki, Florida Loki, or even Australian Loki. But I just really like the way he looks. There's a ton of scale detail up on top and multiple layers of shading. He does of course have his signature Loki helmet, and the strap is separate. You can also move his jaw up and down. Now yes, you can see the seam, and the inside of the mouth is very blocky. But for the most part in my display, I'm going to have his mouth closed. Unfortunately though, for mine, it does tend to droop down from time to time. You do also get some smaller accessories, one of which is exclusive to SooSoo Toys Loki. Now the Hot Toys one was supposed to come with this, but they decided, no, you don't get a cup, and they simply removed it from the product listing. Now I don't exactly know why they did that, but let's be honest, it's not a real big deciding factor, it's just a cup. At the very least, the sculpt work is crisp and clean, and the paint applications for the patina on the surface do look suitably realistic. They've even gone so far as to paint and sculpt the inside of the cup. You also get the remnants of a classic Loki helmet. This looks gorgeous. Now unfortunately he can't actually wear this, but that's perfectly fine with me. It's accurate to the show. Now there are multiple layers of paint, and this is a completely different sculpt to the one that he's wearing. There's pitting on the surface, there's cracks, there's oxidization. This looks gnarly, this looks nasty, and it looks spot on. Now I don't exactly know where I'm going to put this in the display, but when something looks this good, you bet I'm going to find a spot. Moving on to the head sculpt and the alternate faceplate, y'all better buckle in, because you're about to be blown away. Cause I know I was when I saw this head sculpt for the first time in person. Now I don't know if the camera is doing it justice, but the likeness, the skin texture, the way they've painted the speckling on the surface, the eyes, the high gloss to them, yeah, this might just be one of the best head sculpts I have ever seen. And you'll note that I didn't make the distinction of saying third party. Yeah. This could even rival some Hot Toys sculpts. Now the helmet is a nice shiny gold metallic with a ton of pitting on the surface, and the cowl is very nicely sculpted with a bunch of wrinkles and texture. It's also quite dirty and grimy. Now if you are wondering what it looks like with the alternate faceplate, it very simply slides off and then this one slides in. Now I really like the standard one, but this one is something else. The expression, the intensity to his stare, this is going to add so much personality to the figure. And don't worry, you bet we'll be trying out both of these faceplates on him a little bit later on. Technically, these count as hands, but let's cover them separately anyway. Now you do have these fiery, swirly, translucent green magic effects permanently attached to some yellow gloved hands. That means when you're trying to pose him, they're not going to fall off constantly. And of course, that is a very good thing. Now they are two completely distinct sculpts, meaning SooSoo Toys actually invested in making two molds, one for either side. Now I don't know if anyone actually cares about that except me, but I thought it's worth noting. I also like how the green magic effects kind of spill down over his fingers. It's a nice touch and something that you'll definitely notice as the light passes through them in the display. Lastly, you do get an array of hands, and as you'd expect, the sculpt work is crisp and clean. And so too are the paint applications. Now the hands range from these to cup the goblet, to close fists, and then open palm hands. What we are going to do now though is get classic Loki himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And that is 100% Richard E. Grant in the classic Loki suit, shrunk down to 1/6 scale. SooSoo Toys, y'all have delivered the goods. Now some people out there were worried. They were thinking, oh well, the Hot Toys one is coming. Is this figure seriously a threat? Oh yes, you bet it is. If any figure could challenge the Hot Toys crown, it's this one right here. You all already know I love the head sculpts. The likeness is there, that is him in the cowl. Then the outfit is super vibrant, yet suitably dirty and grimy. It's campy, it's classic, it's comic booky, but that level of weathering also ties it to reality. And then lastly, the proportions. It just literally looks like him. It's slightly portly, it's padded in all the right places, yet there is still a decent level of articulation. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal. Now the term Hot Toys quality gets used a lot when it comes to third-party figures. Sometimes it's earned and other times it isn't. I'm about to make the case though that this guy 100% deserves that title. Now starting off with the head sculpt, you already know I love it, but we haven't discussed how it fits on the body. Now it does sit in this collar section and you'd think it would get in the way and kind of make him look weird and goofy and have a short neck. But I'm pleased to report that it absolutely doesn't. Plus, the wrinkling and sculpt work for the cowl quite nicely ties into this rubbery plastic collar. You do have a couple more wrinkles, plus a ton of texture on the surface, and it's painted so that it looks dirty and grimy. You've got a couple of points around the front, and then of course a bunch more at the back. Now the cape is all stretchy fabric and it's super lightweight. That means it drapes exactly how you'd expect, and exactly like how it looked in the show. You do have some tatters down below, and of course some dirt and grime on the surface. This kind of looks exactly like the cape that Hot Toys are also going to be giving us. Now he does have this rubbery panel that comes down to this very interesting design for his belt, yet at the same time it's oh so classic. Plus of course, you guessed it, dirt and grime on the surface. Now the bodysuit is all stretchy green spandex, but it's not just over a standard body. I mean, well, it very clearly is, but there's also a ton of padding placed in strategic areas. His thighs are nicely bulked out, and so too is his upper torso. So just like the cape, everything else is accurate. It also has some of the thinnest seam lines that I have ever seen. That is some top quality craftsmanship by SooSoo. Now the gauntlets are a two-piece mold with this piece up top having a ton of wrinkles and also a little bit of texture on the surface. Not quite as much as this section, but it's not just 100% smooth either. Now coming down to the boots, unfortunately this is something they changed for the worse. The prototype had a split-cut boot design, and I really liked how that looked and how functional it was going to be. But it seems like SooSoo Toys wanted to copy Hot Toys with the super smooth, seamless aesthetic, which isn't a bad thing. I love the way it looks, but now it's not as functional. You don't have a ton of range down here at the ankle. In fact, you don't really have any. You've got some leather grain on the surface and then a fully sculpted in tread down below. But if you are wondering what he looks like with the other faceplate on, oh yes, this is exactly how I'm going to display him in the collection. I love how expressive this faceplate is, yet you can still very clearly tell who that's supposed to be. Now, as for the magic effects, number one, they look really good as we discussed earlier, but the hands are a nice soft rubber. That means you don't have to heat them, you don't have to futz around, they simply pop onto the wrist peg and away you go. Now that's something that's bothered me with SooSoo Toys products recently. The hands have been super difficult to pop on the wrist pegs, but I'm glad to report that with these magic effect ones, it was simply a non-issue. Now do let me know which of the two faceplates you prefer down in the comments below. This was something that I personally was super curious to try, but I don't know if anyone else actually wanted to see this. Nevertheless, here we have it, the Ragnarok Loki head sculpt on the classic body. Now it does sit up a little bit higher just because of how the hair sits over the top of the collar. I'm sure those of you out there who are more adventurous and want to do some modding can make this look way better. But yeah, absolutely, it can pop on there, and to be totally honest, I'm starting to really like the way this looks. Who knows, one day we may see Tom Hiddleston in the classic Loki outfit, but for now, I'll settle for seeing it in 1/6 scale. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have SooSoo Toys Classic Loki on the left and Hot Toys Ragnarok Loki on the right. And as you can see, Classic Loki is ever so slightly taller. But for me, yeah, that works. He's older, he's wiser, he's more experienced. Having a little bit of extra height isn't a bad thing. Now it's all down to personal preference, but at the end of the day, having a bunch of different sizes and scales and styles for Loki, it just adds to the whole timeline TVA multiverse feel of the show. And in the collection, that's exactly what I personally am going for. Next up, here we have the SL Custom President Loki, and he too is shorter than the classic Trickster. Now, when I was saying that the Hot Toys one is shorter, I was of course talking about the top of his head, not the horns. If we're talking about the horns, then Hot Toys is very clearly the taller of the two. Now, it's quite interesting that we have a classic Loki and a President Loki well in advance of Hot Toys. Their versions are still on pre-order, and you might argue that they look better than these two, but I have them here and now, and for me, that's kind of an important thing. I love the way they look. I will be picking up the Hot Toys ones, of course, and we will be doing some comparisons when they eventually release. Just going over articulation. Now, bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I am willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt, it is on a ball joint at the base of the neck, looking forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. Now, this rubbery collar piece does get in the way just a little. The arms will go up to there, they will go forward and back on soft ratchets, butterfly joint at the shoulder that also hinges up and down, swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow, and then of course a regular 1/6 scale wrist peg. The torso will crunch forward and back, swivel and then pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there, they will go out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend at the knee that does get you past 90, and you do have a ball joint for the ankle, but unfortunately, as we discussed earlier, it's one fixed solid boot. Just wrapping up on the SooSoo Toys classic Trickster, aka Classic Loki from the Disney Plus series. Now, going into this, I only had one question on my mind. Is this guy good enough to replace the Hot Toys figure? Now, we won't really know the answer to that question in full until the Hot Toys one comes out, but for now, this guy can stand in as Classic Loki on my shelf any day of the week. The head sculpts are incredible. You get the same expressions as you're getting with Hot Toys, the paint applications, the likeness, it's all there. Then we get to the body. The proportions are super realistic. It actually looks like Richard E. Grant. Plus, the outfit on top of it is second to none. This right here might just be SooSoo Toys' best figure ever. And I kind of find myself saying that with each consecutive SooSoo Toys release, but that's not a bad thing. If they keep improving with each new figure, then they could potentially rival Hot Toys. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day, maybe not in the near future, a couple of those licenses that Hot Toys have let just sit by the wayside start to make their way over to SooSoo Toys. Plus the icing on the cake, the accessories. Now, you are missing the duffel bag that you do get with the Hot Toys version, but I would much rather have the goblet. That's all down to personal preference. Do let me know which one you prefer. I love Throg, I love Alligator Loki, plus of course those badass magic effects. They're permanently attached to the hands, which means they permanently won't be giving you any grief by falling out on display. So, at the end of the day, while I can't answer the question definitively, I can still say that this is a damn fine figure. Well done, SooSoo Toys. Now, I got mine from Comic Sanctorum. Do bear in mind this is a third-party, unlicensed, unofficial product. I have popped the link in the description below for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video, this is a review on a figure I picked up for my own personal collection. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's collection plus the channel memberships. If of course you like the sound of your name appearing in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment and subscribe and we'll catch you in the next video.